Welcome dear students. So in today's class for the subject EST 120 Basics of Civil Engineering, we will be discussing the topic components of a residential building. So we already discussed what is a building and what are the various classifications of buildings as per the National Building Code. So today we will see what are the various components of a residential building in brief. So typically any building can be divided, or we can say that it consists of two important components. They are the substructure and the superstructure. So the substructure is also called as the foundation. So it is that portion of the building which lies below the ground level. So we know that any building has two components. One portion will be below the ground level, the other portion of the structure which is above the ground level. So the portion below the ground level we call it as the substructure or the foundation, and that part of the building that is constructed above the ground level or above the plinth level we call it as the superstructure. So these are the two typical classification, or we can say that any building consists of these two main components, the substructure or the foundations and the superstructure. So here you can see in the figure this the first figure at the top, that is the foundation which usually lies below the ground level, and then the second figure that is at the top, at the bottom you can see that is the superstructure, the portion of a building which lies above the ground level, we call it as the superstructure. Now this again represents the cross section of a wall. So right from the foundation to the parapet you can see the various components of a building is shown in this. So any building we can say it consists of various components, that is like I told you, the substructure or the foundation. Again the superstructure which is that part of the building that is constructed above the plinth level includes various other components like the floor, the walls, the door, the windows, the lintels, the sunshade, roof, stairs, steps, finishes, etc. So there are various other components that are included in the superstructure. So briefly we will discuss each of these. Now this is again another view of a building, of a residential building, which shows the various components. Now again here you have a elevation and a sectional view. So you have the parapet at the top, then the roof level, the lintel level, the sill level, plinth level, the ground level and the foundation level. So we'll discuss each components in detail. Now coming to the foundations. So foundation, like I told you, it is the portion of the building which comes below the ground level, and it is also called as the substructure. Now the foundation is actually the part of the structure which transmits the load of the superstructure to the soil. So we know that whenever we say that a building is stable, structurally stable, it means that all the loads that are being acted upon on this building is safely transmitted to the soil. So the foundation actually anchors the building to the soil, and we can say that it is a very critical part of any building, and it is the foundation which safeguards or protects the building against various forces of wind, the soil pressure, etc. So we can also say that if at all there is any fault in the foundation, it will lead to the collapse or we can say the failure of the building. And there are various functions for the foundation, like I told you. Most importantly, the function is that it distributes the total load which comes on the building uniformly to the soil, and also it provides a level and a firm surface for the construction of the superstructure. So once the construction of the foundation is completed, we know that it will form a level surface over which we can construct the superstructure. Then it prevents the unequal settlement of the structure. Due to the load, there may be settlement of structure at times. So it is a foundation which prevents the unequal or the differential settlement of a structure. Then it gives stability to the building against any forces of wind or other forces which can lead to overturning. Then it ensures that the stability of the building against say flood water. So in the event of flood, what happens, the water will gush and then it may lead to soil erosion, etc. So if proper foundation is given, it will act as a protection for the building. So we can say that it provides stability to against the undermining due to the flood water or say any burrowing animals. And it also provides stability to resist the force due to wind, due to earthquake, etc. So these are the functions of the substructure or the foundation. Now moving to the next part of building, so the basement. So what is a basement? So basement is actually the part between the ground level and the floor level. So any portion of building that lies between the ground level and the floor level, we call it as the basement. And it is the basement which raises the floor above the ground, and thus it protects the structure from rain, from dust, insects, etc. And also at times the basement can be used as a storage space also. So that's about the basement. Coming to the next part, that is a plinth. So plinth is actually the top outer edge of the basement around the building. So you can see here in this figure, here this is the plinth. The top outer edge of the building, we call it as the plinth. So plinth is actually between the substructure and the superstructure. So there are, or you can say it is a middle part of the building above the surface of the surrounding ground up to the surface of the floor. So the structure will have a floor, isn't it? So from the ground to the floor, that portion we call it as the plinth. And it is also sometimes, this is also it's also sometimes called as the basement. So plinth and basement are almost the same, and the minimum height of the plinth is usually kept as 45 centimeters. So normally the height of a minimum height is kept at 45 centimeters. It may vary, but usually we provide a minimum height of 45 centimeter for the plinth. And the main functions of the plinth is that it transmits the load from the superstructure to the substructure. It acts as a retaining wall for the filling inside the plinth or the raised floor. It also protects the building from say dampness, moisture penetration, etc. And overall it improves the architectural appearance of the building. So these are the functions of the plinth. Yes, it is given here. Now coming to plinth area is the area between the outer edges of the basement. Of course, area we will be discussing later on the different area calculations, etc. Now coming to the damp proof course. So usually a damp proof course is provided to prevent the entry of moisture from the foundation to the walls. So usually it is laid at the plinth level also. We give it at various places, sometimes on the roof, etc. Also we provide a DPC, it's also called as a DPC. Damp proof courses are provided at the plinth level to prevent the moisture entry from the foundation to the walls. And cement mortar, usually the DPC comprises of cement mortar that is mixed with crude oil or any waterproofing agent or damp proof membranes. Now coming to the floors. So floor, of course, it is an important part of any building. We can say that they are provided to divide a building into different stories. So we know that when a building has more than one story, we call it as a multi-storied building, isn't it? One story, two storied, multi-storied buildings, high-rise buildings, etc. So floors are actually provided to divide a building into different stories for creating more accommodation one above the other. So when we construct a building with a large number of floors, what happens? We can accommodate more people. And the main function of the floor is to give support to the occupants, then the furniture and the equipments of the building. And also the other functions include that the floor should be very strong to carry the load safely. It should provide a clean, smooth surface and durable surface. It should have adequate resistance against fire, and also the walls should have sufficient heat and sound insulation. So these are the requirements of a good floor. Now coming to the walls we know it is the main function or a main component of a superstructure. And the main function of the wall is to divide the whole space into different rooms. So it is the wall which divides the full space into different rooms. So also the walls will support the loads from the roof, like the upper floors, the load of the upper floors to the foundation. And the other functions of the wall is, we can say the other requirements. It is like it should be stable against overturning by the lateral forces. Then external walls should provide sufficient resistance against weathering, because it is the external walls which are attacked by the agencies like the wind, the sunlight, the rain, etc. So the external walls should be constructed in such a way that it should provide resistance against the weathering actions. Of course, the internal walls we provide it for dividing the internal space into various rooms. Now, and also walls should have sufficient heat and sound insulation, and it should provide sufficient privacy and security against burglary. So it should provide, the walls should be safe. It should give the privacy. At the same time, it should protect the building from any other attack, or it should be secured. So these are the requirements of a wall. So here you can see a wall. This is just a figure which shows the different types of walls. Now another component are the doors and the windows. So doors and windows again are important components of a building or a superstructure. So we know that the doors actually it acts as a connecting link between the internal parts, and also it is used to allow free movement of the people who use the building, isn't it? They are mainly provided to give access to the outside of the building as well as to connect the inner rooms of the building. And windows, we know that they are openings provided for the purpose of ventilation, then for providing natural light into the building, etc. And regarding the requirements of the doors and windows, the doors and windows should be weather resistant. That is, it should resist any type of weather. It should have adequate resistance against fire. Then it should have sufficient heat and sound insulation. Also, the doors and windows should provide sufficient privacy and security against burglary. Burglary means theft, thieves. So it should be strong enough so as to provide security to the building. So these are the requirements of the doors and windows. So here the figure shows some doors and windows. Now coming to the next components, like some other components in the superstructure like the beam, the lintels and the sunshades. So what is a beam? You would have heard the term beam, then columns, etc. So when we say a beam, it is actually a horizontal member or a structural member which carries the floor slab or the roof slab or the roof. And when it comes to lintel is actually a beam which supports the masonry work over the openings in the walls. And I'll show you this in this figure. You can see. So this is a window, lintel. So lintels are usually horizontal. You can see that in your house also you would have seen. There is a horizontal beam provided above the openings, mainly the doors and the windows. So the main purpose of providing such a beam is to carry the weight or the load of the wall above this opening. So above the door opening you have the section of the wall. So this load has to be transmitted to the soil through either ends of the door opening or the window opening. So a lintel is a beam or a horizontal member which is provided or which supports the masonry work over the openings in the wall. So that is a lintel. And any horizontal load carrying member in a structure we call it as a beam. And a beam that is provided above the door or window openings we call it as a lintel. And of course sunshade you all are familiar with. It is a projection which is usually provided outside a building and above the doors and windows in order to prevent the direct entry of sunlight and rain into the rooms. So that is a sunshade. So usually we provide a sunshade above the doors and the window, and usually they project outside. The sunshade is usually provided outside of a building above the doors and windows. The main purpose, like I told you, it is to prevent the entry of sunlight and rain and other natural agencies into the room. Now coming to the window sill, there is another term called the window sill. So window sills are provided between the bottom of the window frame and the wall below, and this is mainly to protect the wall from wear and tear. So that's about the window sill. So here you can see clearly above the door and above the window you can see a horizontal beam is given. So main purpose is to support the load of the masonry part or the wall above this, isn't it? So this horizontal member we call it as a lintel. And here the projection, external projection from the window, we call it as the sunshade. Of course, next is the roof. Like the floor, roof is also a very important part of a superstructure, and it is defined as the uppermost part of a building, and the main function of the roof is to enclose the whole space and to protect the space from the effects of weather. It protects the building from the rain, from the sunlight, etc. And there are different types of roofs which we will be discussing further, and it may be flat or it may be curved or it may be sloped, and also there are various materials that we use for the construction of the roof, like concrete, clay tile, iron sheets, steel, etc. And the requirements of a good roof are that it should be strong against the effects of wind, sun, rain, etc. And also it should have proper drainage, because in the event of rain, what happens? Water should not be locked on the roof. It should flow easily. So there should be proper drainage provided for the roofs. And also it should be highly resistant against heat and fire, and it should have resistance of like various weathering agencies. These are some of the different types of roofs here. And another component are the steps and the stairs. They are mainly provided for giving access to the building. And a stair is a structure which consists of a number of steps from one floor to another. It connects the buildings, different floors of a building. And the main function of the stairs is to provide a means of communication between the various floors. And it also provides as an escape from the upper floor whenever there is a fire. So stairs and steps are also used as an escape mechanism in the event of fire. So here the picture shows a stair, typical different types of stairs. And now coming to the parapet. Parapet is a short masonry wall which is built on the top of a roof. We know that above the terrace you provide a short wall. This is called as a parapet. Mainly it provides protection, and also it encloses the a roof, and it acts as an element for good appearance. It gives a good appearance to the building. And of course the weathering course, it is a layer which is provided above the roof to protect the roof from rain, sunlight, etc. So this is a typical building. So I hope the various components of a building are clear. And of course we have the final component, that is the finishes. So wall finishes, it gives a good aesthetic appearance to the building. There are various types of finishes like pointing, plastering, painting, varnishing, polishing, etc. So they actually protect the building from the effects of weather, and also it gives a good appearance to the building, aesthetic appearance, and it also covers the defective materials, or if at all the workmanship or the work is not very neat, everything will be covered by the finishes. So pointing is a process of filling the gap of the walls here and there by using cement mortar, and plastering is again giving a smooth surface of cement mortar over the masonry. And of course painting is done in various colors and shades, so that it gives a good aesthetic appearance to the building, as well as it protects the building from various weathering actions. So these are the various components of the wall. So here you can see the process of plastering. So it means the covering that is applied on the surface of the walls and the ceilings. So here again how the mortar joints are being filled by plaster. So these are the various components of the building. Thank you.